the fun thing was, even if you didn't know what the words meant on the paper, you got used to raising your voice and screaming these words at the top of your lungs, right? And so that was always the funnest exercise, because I'm like, you got it, you're not selling it by whispering it. I really need to hear you scream out, "I'll pay $4, you know?
So today I'm talking with Michael Steiner, and I was introduced to him by a previous guest I talked to, Chris Abdelmessa, who was another just far-ranging, hyper-curious person I was excited to talk to. So I'm similarly excited to talk to you today, Michael. You have a really fascinating background, not a straight line in terms of a career, which makes you a perfect fit for this podcast, The Pathless Path. You started your career in trading. You also had some experience in ROTC programs in the Army. You created along the way a game called Stockslam, teaching people about market making and other principles from trading and finance. That kind of grew and evolved over the years. Now you're a high school teacher and sports coach, and excited to talk to you today. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Thanks so much, Paul.
I always start with a similar question, and I'd love to just dive back into your childhood and ask a little bit about what was it like to grow up as Michael Steiner? What were some of the stories or scripts you had about what you were aiming towards as an adult? I know it's very ambiguous when we're young. For me, it was like, go to school, get good grades. What were some of the scripts and stories you grew up with?
My parents didn't go to college, and I was raised like solid middle class, blue collar. And I think I always knew that I had it really good, and I was like super lucky just to be born in the suburbs of New Jersey to these parents, and to have their support, and to have the curiosity about things that I have. And I think I just got fed the right information at the right pace in order to just rocket through, not faster than anyone else, but rocket through school with a lot of great feedback and a lot of great inspiring teachers. So yeah, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I look back, and even going through it, I kind of knew that I had better luck than most people, it seemed.
You ended up at Penn for college, which
That's right.
Must have required some sort of impressive academic achievements. Were you exceptionally curious in any certain areas that kind of drove you in that direction?
No, and I even didn't know that Penn was an Ivy League school. I just saw it in the magazine with a ton of majors possible at it. And I knew that I wanted to go someplace where I could have access to as much information as possible, and just to have that wide open. I really just picked it as one of my schools that was close enough to that I could be away from my parents, but not too far away, and then like have all those opportunities. And I didn't even know about the Wharton School or any of the things that went along with Penn, but I quickly learned that stuff, and
what was that?
Really maxed out there.
What was that experience like as a first-gen college student? You get in a world like that, and you don't really understand what you're entering into. How did you start to make sense of what you had in front of you and what you were going to do next?
Well, I had an older brother who had gone to a local community college, so I knew a little bit about college. Again, I just got so lucky that I had these roommates in college who had all different levels of understanding so many different things. And one guy hadn't finished high school. He went right to Penn and Wharton. Another fellow was from Turkey, and he was just this math genius and language genius. And then I had another friend from another roommate from Minneapolis, was also just absolutely brilliant and a musician. I got, again, super lucky. I was kind of the dumbest one, I'd say, of the four of us, and especially the fellow who hadn't finished high school, he like really pushed everyone, all of us, and like to take as many classes as possible and just like really have the most amazing time we could there.
Yeah, what kind of effect did that have on you?
He wound up going into finance also, and he told me like, hey, you're good at math, you need to take these math courses and take all these classes at Wharton also. And then the other guy was encouraging me to take statistics and just do some engineering classes. And yeah, I don't know if it hadn't been for them, those guys, I don't know what would have happened at Penn. I mean, I was in ROTC, so that kept me more sober than others, at college, because I had a lot of early mornings and stuff.
Yeah.
But
do you look back on this and just wonder, it's sort of random you end up around these guys? Do you think it was inevitable you end up going down this math finance route, or was it sort of random looking back?
I think it was kind of random looking back. I didn't have a lot of confidence, so I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I think I knew that MIT was a place, I knew that NGIT was a place, and Caltech was a place, but I thought like I didn't have the chops to even become an engineer. I was really insecure, despite all of my successes. I didn't think I could hang at a Harvard. So why I thought I could hang at Penn was only because I didn't know it was an Ivy League school.
It was the local school, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you start thinking about working in finance? I mean, along the way, you must have realized, okay, I can hang with these Penn students, or at least there's a path to make my way in finance.
That was definitely my roommates, and they were, the one particular was really into finance, and he was a libertarian, and we had this kind of joke going. I don't know. There's a line from the movie Easy Money where it's Back to School, the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, and he goes on this long rant. But we had a different rant that we would go on. We say that we're convinced that this was the rant. We're convinced that the next crisis this country faces is going to be an economic one, and I want to be on the front lines with my slide ruler and my calculator, beating the Japanese right back to the Great Wall of China. Like some kind of like rant thing, like that the next sort of romantic job is in finance, and it was just goofy. And one of my roommates had done some time on a stock exchange floor as in high school as a clerk on the stock exchange floor, and he would always talk about it and how crazy fun that was. So that was another thing that was bouncing around in my mind. His stories of hilarity on the New York Stock Exchange as a teenager.
Yeah. Did you ever read the book Liar's Poker, and does that sort of resonate with the time period of that world?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I've never read the book, but I've heard of it, and yeah, there was a lot of that. The degenerate gambler part of it, there was a strong piece of that, but I never really, I wasn't a big gambler and like bet on sports or even play poker much. Mine was more like trying to figure out the formulas and figure out the right games to the right answer, not necessarily sitting down at a blackjack table and counting the cards. That sounds like absolute drudgery.
How did you end up at Susquehanna?
There was a phone interview that a person had to get through in order to get to the next level, and I knew that. And from one of my roommates in college I think he had interviewed with them, but he wound up working for I think a Bank of New York and then Bank of America. And so he told me that the interviewer was going to ask you some probability questions. He said I didn't get many of them right, but he said your math is better than mine, so you might be okay with it. And that was the that was the first time I had contact with Susquehanna. It was a few months after I finished an Army obligation for my ROTC scholarship. It's like right
And
after.
that's where, did you start there as a trader or a
Susquehanna.
junior? Yeah.
Yeah, a junior assistant trader. I came in onto the Amex, and pretty much my entire career at Susquehanna was in New York.
And what was that like what was the year that you started and what was the environment like, the financial world?
1996, Susquehanna was still heavily into equity options. We were still trading in fractions. So the training was to do the quick mental math to look at the puts and calls and see if they're lined up. And as brokers came in and asked for prices, you'd figure out what the synthetic relationship was to any options that were on the board and quickly yell at the market. That's cool, right? I didn't just talk over anybody's head, I hope.
Yeah, no, we can get nerdy on the podcast.
Oh, good.
I love going deep. As I was saying before, you're wearing an MIT hat. You didn't go there, but you use it as a trigger to find people like me that want to go nerdy and go deep. So, yeah, let's go deep. What were some of the? I mean, it seems like you sort of fell in love with probabilities, statistics, math, all those sorts of things on your journey. How did that start to emerge?
I think in high school I started my love of probability and expected value, and I think we learned the lesson about the value of a lottery ticket. You know, you pay $1 for it, and then when they hand it over to you, it's worth the expected value of the ticket is like 3 cents. So on average, you lose or not even 3 cents, right? It's like 0.00, like whatever it is, ridiculous. And so the fact that you make this bet and you can show with math how terrible it is, and it's like, wow, that's so fascinating, right? Like that just opens the doors to like the next level, and what's the next level, and what's the next level? How do I answer more difficult questions about probability and what's counting cards in blackjack about, right? Like maybe I can figure out the algorithms of just algorithms of how to predict things better. And
and that's, I think funny enough, that's around the time when the MIT blackjack team started doing exactly that.
Yeah, one of the guys who taught me the beginning options theory was on the MIT team.
Wow!
Before he joined SIG, so it was that. Yeah, it was kind of cool.
It's such an interesting lens. I think I see this all the time. So I'm pretty deep in learning about statistics and probability myself. You see things every day that people just take as sort of like facts, but you realize they aren't. For example, jobs numbers, right?
Right.
Jobs numbers, they give you this very specific number and people see that and they think it's true, right? But you dig into it and I was looking at this the other day, the jobs numbers are like, they give you a 90% confidence range, which is pretty wide.
Yeah.
And then that means 10% odds that they're totally way off.
Right.
Which is pretty high when you're basing all this expectations of a future of an economy on these certain numbers and people's psychology and how that intertwines.
Right.
Do you get frustrated in today's world with how little understanding there is of Bayesian probabilistic thinking?
No, I honestly say it's fine. I mean, maybe when I was younger, I thought, it would be nice to be able to take advantage of this, right? I don't know, some way kind of trick people and get them, that's what you're doing at a poker table when you're up against amateurs, right? You're trying to trick them into making bad decisions. And no, I mean, I don't get frustrated. I just keep bringing up the same ideas that statistics are wonderful because they quantify uncertainty for us. We can finally put a number on something we're not sure of. And once we have a number on it, we can decide what our relative level of anxiety is going to be. So,
Yeah.
there's something very calming about that.
Yeah, can you bring that alive? Like what's a concrete example of like what that might look like in maybe the financial realm? And then I'd love to hear like if you apply this to your personal decision making as well.
Oh yeah, for me it's fairly natural. But thanks. I guess so the whole idea of what it means to act rationally, right? Like people are saying you're being irrational, but what they really mean is you're acting disproportionately to the matter at hand, right? That's if something's rational, it's proportional, and if you're acting irrationally, you're overreacting or underreacting. So we do that with maybe like small sample sizes, and when or appropriately sized sample sizes. So talking to someone, a friend of mine who said, "I'm not getting the COVID vaccination until more people get it," and I said, "Oh, how many is that going to be?" And she says, "I don't know, just more." And it didn't really. She wasn't bothering me if she took another 2 weeks to do it or not. But like that was the end of the conversation, right? And I wasn't trying to point out anything, weird, like she was making a bad decision. I just wanted to know what her thoughts were. It's like, how confident did she have to be in something in order to act on it? And so ideally, we want to know where those levels are.
Yeah, I actually went through an exercise last year where I was trying to quantify like my worst case scenario of what it would look like if I sort of just like broke even for the rest of my life and then collected Social Security.
Right.
And it delighted me because it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh, I could live on 40 grand for the rest of my life, which is like, I mean, it's a non-trivial problem to solve, but it was like, that is a pretty good life, all things considered.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't make everyone confident. And it's funny, like when you ask people similarly, like, what's your number? How much money would you need? You realize it's an emotion, right? It's just more. More is a substitute for like insecurity rather than like going through the process of saying, well, let's just pick a number and then work backwards and then we can settle it.
That's a good one, right?
Yeah. So how did you shift from being a trader to teaching this kind of stuff at Susquehanna? And I'd love to hear like more about the culture there too, because I know they use poker as a teaching tool as well, and a lot of other unconventional teaching tactics.
I don't know. Besides the poker, I don't know if too much of it is unconventional, because so many of the other firms of different sizes would do mock trading with their assistant traders, and they'd have some sort of training that you'd had to get through, and some call it.
Maybe. I guess I'm just unfamiliar with sales and trading training.
Yeah, so the way Susquehanna ran, and then I quickly within a few months of becoming a trader. So maybe a year and a half into my time at Susquehanna, the way I taught was we run mock trading sessions, and we do like, I guess you'd call them tests, but theory tests, and asking them to find the arbitrage. Like I give them a board, and they have to find the arbitrage on the board. I guess I did. I would sometimes ask them theoretical questions or have them build something for me. But for me, in New York, it was to get them ready to go to the next level, kind of like the finishing touches of working with the partners and taking classes there in Bala-Cynwyd, Pennsylvania, at the headquarters.
How did you get into the teaching role? Was that always just a natural pull for you, or something you enjoyed doing?
Oh yeah. So for me, the teaching, I love my high school teachers. That's for one. And then for two, then when I got to Penn, one of my roommates, again, I had the best set of roommates. He just said, you have calculus credit, go sign up as a tutor. They're paying $35 an hour to be a tutor for these warden kids, because, you know, they got to get smart in calculus. So I did that. So I was like, this is so fun, right? To talk to people about calculus and help them make the connections. So I was like, I always wanted to be like, I realized deep down, I always wanted to be a teacher, in a system like a school. And so then that's when I got to Susquehanna. Then, you know, nobody really wanted to teach. Like, it was one of those things where it's like, who's going to do it? And it's like, okay, I'll run mock trading tonight. And then one guy would come in and say, the next time he would say, I just want to play poker. Someone else do it, right? And I was the one who stood up and at one point and I said, well, I'll just take over. I'll just take this over. I'm becoming a better trader by doing it for, you know, and selfish reasons. And the other thing, it was just so fun because during the regular day, standing around the stock exchange, there's so much downtime, and you do fill it in with just, you know, nonsense and silliness, and, you know, maybe do some. We would always do some rehearsing in our heads, but there was so much downtime that you would just watch the clock, and someone would just yell out, "Can we please rally the clock? It's too slow." Because there were, you know, but going back to the office to do mock trading at night and do education, it was crazy trading the entire time.
Did you have a sense that might be a thread that would pull you forward in your life, or is just like, this is just something I like doing, I'm sort of a trader, I'm going to keep doing this?
I wasn't sure. I just knew it just felt great. It just to trade during the day and then to teach junior traders at night. It was just a perfect balance for taking and making, right? Like, it was just the two things.
Yeah, and maybe you can bring alive some of the things you actually taught. Like, what do you mean by mock trading and market making, things like this? How do you actually practice and teach those skills?
So you just start with, I know we're going to talk about my game, but the one time I did mock trading, I'll tell you what it was like. And this was the spark of what became my game. So, King Yao, was a trader at Susquehanna. He was senior to me. And one day he ran mock trading when I was just an assistant trader. So I'm a trader. I'm a mock trader. He's in charge. He tells us what we're going to be doing. He got a VHS tape of a basketball game, and he said, no one has seen this basketball game. He was sure, and he said, you're going to make a market on the total number of points. You're going to trade amongst yourselves the total number of points in this game. Okay, so we'd never seen it before. And so as the game starts playing out, we're supposed to be making a market on the total points. We don't know if it's going to go into overtime.
Oh, wow.
We don't know what's going to happen. So we just start screaming numbers out, and we're writing down on a piece of paper, like, trades with each other. And then at the end, it was $1 a point. So let's say you did nothing else. Let's say you did absolute nothing else, but you bought one share at 100 points, okay? And the game settled, the total number of points in the game was 105. Well, that one share that you bought from someone at 100 points is worth now $5 at expiration. And where do you get that $5? You get that $5 from the fella from the other side. So he's minus $5 at the end of the game. You're plus $5 at the end of the game. And
that's
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
So market making, so that's trading. Now, market making is the process of stating a bid and an ask price. So the bid is a price where you'd buy the asset, and an ask is a price where you'd sell the asset. And you're stating those two prices in order to generate a transaction. So you might, if the game's playing out, the game's playing out, and you just yell out, "Well, I'll buy the total number of points for 110, and I'll sell the points for 112." So your market is now 110 bid at 112, and if someone hits your bid, that means you buy it and they're selling, and if someone takes your offer, that means they're buying and you are selling.
And what are some of the mental models behind like thinking about doing that, right? I know Susquehanna was one of the best firms at sort of market making and is still playing a pretty big role in this. Like, what was their actual role? Like, what were some of the things they traded on, and how do you think about creating a market in something?
So usually you're not walking into a marketplace for the first time. Something's trading already. So we'll talk about when there's a new product, but if there's a product that's already trading and we're exploring the market for the first time, Susquehanna, like anyone else, is just going to do a ton of research and try to figure out where the edge is, and maybe look at some historical data. But when you look at historical data, there's so many pitfalls that people can make. Survivorship bias is one, right? You only see the things that are left after something might have weeded them out, and also it's confirmation bias. Like, you can find a pattern when there isn't one. So Susquehanna would see something that's trading, or anybody, and then try to figure out if there's a pricing anomaly, or maybe there's a lot of volume. There's a lot of volume trading, and just being there can give information to another part of the company, or maybe it's something that's trading already, and there's just nobody standing there trading it. There's very few people there, so no one has any idea. So you get to be like an explorer.
And I'm curious to know, like, teaching, as you started to take more of a teaching role. I know my experiences from teaching is sort of this, I didn't actually understand what I was doing until I had to explain it to other people. So I assume you went through sort of the same evolution. How did that start leading these feedback cycles of your own learning as you were working as a trader during the day and teaching this stuff at night?
Oh yeah, we can look back at something that was difficult to learn, and we can reflect on what it was about it that was difficult. So was it some vocabulary word that we didn't associate correctly with whatever the phenomenon was? Maybe it was a vocabulary word. Maybe it was some contextual, other contextual thing. Or maybe it was the math. Like, we just didn't, the derivation of the formula, which has a lot of information in it, we just didn't understand that and the importance of it. So it could be a mathematical reason. There's always some reason why something switched from being hard to easy. And then once you explore all those possibilities, then the next time you're learning something, you watch out for them. So that ordered knowledge. I'm not sure that answered your question, though, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I was saying, like, once you start teaching it, and then how did that influence your own learning loops? So reapplying the stuff you were teaching.
Yeah, well, teaching it was great because developing the process of getting these junior traders to become market-making monsters, that was a thrill also to see someone go from shy, mild-mannered to ready to scream out a market. That was just truly like, that's my guy out there, and like girls. But seeing them with their hangups and what helped them get through things. Oh, that was great. It helped me with anything that I was trying to figure out, and it helped me make the whole process better for everybody.
Yeah, and to set the context, I mean, I know trading pits, you were often like yelling out bids, asks, orders. Is that still done like that? I'm just curious.
I think just in very few places, but the mechanics themselves are that face-to-face negotiation, and then the idea of like listening to prices trap trading around you and all that information, filtering out that literal noise, is a very valuable skill, I think, when it comes to
Yeah,
trading.
and how do you turn a shy young person into a
Yes,
market making monster?
exactly. That's what I think I figured out, and what I take the most took the most pleasure in it. So one thing I did I stole from uh, my Spanish language class. So you remember where it says it gave you each line, and so each person would have to pick apart, and then you'd have to read it, right? And so you como te llamas, and like the person, oh, me llamo Juan, and like each person, so you have this script. So I wrote these mock trading scripts. So I would hand them out to my junior traders in the crowd, and there were exclamation points at some places, right? And like interruptions, like if someone said, like for example, I would have someone yell out, "I'll pay 4," and then the next person would yell out, "I'll pay 3." Now, if someone's willing to pay 4 and someone else is willing to pay 3, the person who's willing to pay 3 needs to get in line, right? Because the person who's willing to pay 4 has standing. So I even wrote into the script that the person who stated that they're willing to pay 4 would scream at the person who is only bidding 3, like, get in line, it's my bid, okay? Right. So in an auction, right? Could you imagine someone in an auction said, I'll pay 3. The next person said, I'll pay 4. And then someone else yelled, I'll pay 3. You would shout that person down. Well, you have to do that in the pit, because otherwise, like you can't let that happen. So I would write into the script how to shout down a person who's making it basically an illegal market because they don't know any better. And so the fun thing was, even if you didn't know what the words meant on the paper, you got used to raising your voice and screaming these words at the top of your lungs, right? And so that was always the funnest exercise, because I'm like, you got it, you're not selling it by whispering it. I really need to hear you scream out, "I'll pay $4,"
This is so fascinating. I mean, just the connection of like the body and the mind connecting all these things. Like, were you thinking about this at the time?
I knew I had to, this is just one small part of it. Like, I knew I had to turn them into people who could shout stuff out. And I figured if I get them to shout out the right stuff, even if they don't know what it means, at least I've gotten them to make this. And I didn't come up with this script thing until a couple years in, but it's one of the more fun things that I came up with.
What other things did you come up with that were unique or sort of remixing different ways of teaching?
Oh yeah, so that was one of them. The other one was that I would. So the hard thing about mock trading is you typically just come in and you just write a stock price up on the board, and then somebody's constantly moving it, and then people are supposed to adjust the options, and it gets kind of it's hard to coordinate, because the crowd kind of will do things, so you almost have to wing it in some ways. But what I did is, instead of having this winging around thing, I had just a list of tickets that it's like made the whole thing much more random, of tickets of things that people had to do, whether they wanted to or not. Like, so they had to make a market in something, or they had to, like, they just had to keep picking tickets, and based on how they pick tickets out of this big bowl of tickets, the whole mock trading session could go any kind of different direction. So that was something I came up with. And yeah, and then I think I came up with a lot of even just like pen and paper standardized tests things, which was really fun too.
It almost sounds like you were gamifying a lot of how you were teaching. Was that a conscious decision? Were you influenced by any sort of gaming principles, or was that just something you were just kept A/B testing and improving things?
Yeah, I think if I had kept a leaderboard the whole time, I think that would have been a little bit more effective. But gaming, I mean, it is a game, and you just it's a zero sum game. That's what we say in the finance world of trading, at least. So I could have, yeah, I probably could have done a leaderboard, but every day was a game. I mean, they knew
Yeah.
this was not, we didn't have to protect anybody's ego like I do in high school. I can't tell people each other's grades in high school, but
Yeah.
in here, in this context, I could tell them, right? I could say, you're not going to the next level with this kind of score. And what's the person going to say? You bullied me. It's like, no, because I'm not, I
They want
wouldn't.
to do better.
Yeah, you can't be trusted with any money in order to trade an account right now. So, like you have
Yeah.
to.
What did you learn from such a hyper competitive environment? I mean, you're now teaching in a high school, and you obviously can't take things to the extremes. But what did you learn just about like pushing people and challenging them?
I haven't learned anything about it because I just feel I feel always wary anytime I set the bar for anything, and I'm always it's like worried about people like running into the bar, slithering under it. Like when I mean slithering under it, I mean like cheating their way through it, or getting hurt by it. So anytime I haven't figured anything out how hard I can push a group of people.
Yeah.
So
How do you think about raising like giving people an environment where they can be more aspirational about their own goals? It does seem like you care about that, right? You care deeply about the people you're teaching, and you do want them to thrive.
yeah, yes, the design of any education system is going to do that. That's what I'm trying to do is minimize the struggle with no pain. It's okay to struggle, but it's not okay to be to feel pain, and get the best results for the most people. And yeah, that's always every modification I make to my plans is always with that in mind. And I've actually started some just this year. It's only the third day in school, but I'm learning a bit more about setting up a class so that there can be multiple paths through materials, so that the students who, for example, like a kid who gets 10 out of 10 on a pre-quiz shouldn't have to do homework, but a kid who gets 6 out of 10 on a pre-quiz, I mean, he's got to do some practice before he gets back in there. So like figuring out how and the kid who gets 10 out of 10, maybe I give him a very low weighted sort of side thing to do, like an enrichment project. So I'm kicking that around right now. I'm only 3 days into school, but I think I've discovered a few, not discovered, but I'm exploiting a few new technologies for that.
Yeah, I think there was some research from when Khan Academy was launching some of their initial stuff that would show like some people would be behind.
Oh yeah.
But then eventually over time, they would sort of like equal, if not surpass some of these people. So they were like slow at first, but fast at the end. So the multipath model of learning is really fascinating. It'll be great like with more technology.
Yeah, like the choose your own adventure thing of to get through a set of it's a bunch of material. He used to have a long time ago. He used to have a map where it had you at the top, and then all these paths you can go through, and all of them connected with nodes, and then at the end there was calculus or whatever it was you were trying to get through. So you could zoom in and out of this map. I'm sure it got too cumbersome. And it was wild to see like, oh, I can go down this path a certain distance and then go back up and then go down another path and just keep marching towards this goal, that was really cool. But yes, I'm aside from the fact that I have to keep my students for the most part together as we work through the curriculum, sending them down like the ones who are ready, not the ones who are not, but sending them down little rabbit holes as we go to do some explorations is kind of the ones who get 10 out of 10. That's the next game to raise it up.
I would have loved that in school. I was always the kid that would like finish the math and basically just like sit there quietly. But I'd love to hear more about struggle versus pain. I think that's so interesting because we sort of struggle with this. I think like how to push people, how it's supposed to feel. Like obviously some challenge is great, but like what do you mean by pain and how do you avoid that and steer people towards the challenge path?
Oh, so yeah, sometimes we're just asking so I'm sometimes asking a student to do more than they're capable of, and they're what they're going through is like they can't get it. I mean, they just don't have the scaffolding to get whatever I want. So now they start to they start to feel bad and they start to suffer. Okay, if it's something you can't achieve, you struggle till you get there. If it's something you can't achieve, you're going to be suffering, right? So suffering should be avoided, and it should always be about struggle. So I'm constantly on the lookout for that, right? If I see a student who seems like they're suffering, that's number one priority. A kid who's struggling, it's like, okay, yeah, you got to do you know, and again, it's like whatever, stupid mistakes. I'd say stupid mistakes when a kid will say that, and I hope I'm doing quotes, even if this isn't visual. Quote unquote. Stupid mistakes are that's struggling. Having no freaking clue what to do, that's suffering.
Yeah.
So,
and how do you convince students who might think they're in pain but are actually just struggling and just need to push a little harder?
No, you just give them a tiny bit of scaffolding, right? You just try to figure out what's the least amount I need to do in order to get this person back on track on this particular topic. And it might be some, it might be some picture that I quickly draw, or maybe the kid sitting right next to them. I can say, you just asked me this question. You think you can explain it now? And that sometimes helps. So it's just trying to figure out what's going to work best for a kid.
And it seems like you're just super curious about figuring out all these challenges and puzzles.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to use this as a way to connect back to Stockslam. You mentioned the seed was planted in your trading career. Did you know maybe there's a game in the future I make on my own, or was it just like this curiosity you wanted to keep learning? And how did you eventually end up leaving trading and starting to tinker a little more on the side?
Oh, so those are a few things. To leave trading,
you can break them up.
Oh, to leave trading and tinker on the side. Equity options were when I left Susquehanna, the trading options was getting to be less and less lucrative, and I don't know, just wasn't the flavor. And I guess I probably could have figured out a way to move within Susquehanna, but I really liked market making, and I don't know, just the time seemed to be right, and so I left Susquehanna after 8 years to become a stay-at-home dad and then part-time doing other things. But for the most part, stay-at-home dad for maybe 10 or 15 years.
That's amazing. So, how was that experience?
Oh, that was wild. I mean, almost no babysitters, and it was great to be with my kids as much as anything else, right? And also miserable. The moments were just absolutely miserable from, having like 3 kids hanging off you in all different ways. I just think a great New Yorker cartoon would be some guy pushing a double stroller that's empty through Manhattan, and he has a baby Bjorn, which is something that holds a baby against your chest, and there's nothing in it. And he's got, as he's pushing the stroller, he's got one kid on his shoulders, like on his, on his head to shoulders, another kid in his arm. And then the other kid is just like walking next to the stroller, right? Because it's just miserable, but it's also really, really fun. So to do things like take my kids to the pool and bring my ukulele along and just sit on a chair off to the side and just figure out songs while they were splashing and on the pool,
That's beautiful. Was that something intentional you sort of intended to last that long? It's something I'm aspiring to as well.
Cool.
I think like I'm sort of designing my work to be at least part-time flexible so I can be around when we have kids. And so it's cool to hear other men that are doing that as well.
Oh yeah, I didn't think twice about it. Like as far as like the man versus woman thing. But
I was just saying in terms of like a career, like did you decide, okay, I'm going to do this for 10 to 15 years, or did you start to take time off and you're like, oh, this is actually a great time to spend with my kids and I want to keep this going?
So to be clear, again, this is just luckiness, lucky and just how my wife at the time, her business was really taking off, and we were kind of stressed out about finding a babysitter, and it just seemed natural with the number of kids, the kids that we had, and the one we also wanted to have another one. It just made sense for me to do it, and also just that my career at Susquehanna. I mean, I was making as much money as ever for them, but it was just they didn't. It was just I was just less appreciated, so I was just like, it's time to go. And I think we were having a bad year anyway. So, Anyway, the stay-at-home dad part was a great gig, and I did other things while I was doing that, like tutoring and substitute teaching and getting an education degree and doing some work for the family business. But and besides that,
when did the path of going into teaching sort of emerge as something you wanted to do, or it was just always something you were doing on the side a little bit?
Yeah, I was tutoring. I was always tutoring, and I did some substitute teaching in the school where I'm teaching now. So I got a good feel for what the students were like, what the other teachers were like, being in the same town. I'm teaching in the same town where I live, and so that's always been nice to know people. When I'm, of my students right now, I've probably hung out with, I don't know, 10% of their parents.
That's amazing.
So I know, and I know them from all different walks of life and stuff. So it's a pretty cool gig.
And what is it like teaching young high schoolers all sorts of hormones and ambitions and confusion, probabilistic thinking, Bayesian thinking, stochastic reasoning? Like, how do you transcend the interestingness of these topics to that group of people?
Oh yeah, just making connections to them and talking to them is really nice. They're all going through something. They're all pretty much just 10th graders, and they're just good people. They're all kind to themselves and kind to each other and kind to me for the most part. To some of them, I'm invisible just because I'm over 20 years old. So some of them don't see me, and no matter what I say or do, it's just, So with them, I can kind of get away with saying anything, which is kind of nice. They don't hear it. But most of the students are just so kind and helpful and like to each other. If I say to one of them, hey, hey Sally, can you do me a favor and show Jimmy how to do that? They always say yes. They always say yes, and they do it, and they don't give up until they're done with it. So, I mean, just to do that is just awesome, right?
Yeah, and what do you think you do different based on your background in terms of how you approach teaching than maybe other teachers do? Not to put down any other teachers, but just curious about how you think about it. I mean, you detailed that like you want to make the best program to serve the most students the best way with the least suffering. So you sort of had this like almost like Buddhist sort of orientation towards teaching.
Well, number one, I tell them that, and I'm also not afraid to tell them that I love them. As creepy as it is coming from a high school teacher. I mean, I tell them I love them because they're my neighbors. They're my cousins if we go back far enough. Maybe they're my nieces and nephews I don't know. But like if you go back far enough, we're all related. So
it's like 12 generations, right? We're all cousins.
Oh yeah. So I'm like, we're in this together. Like I worry and freak out about the same things they do, maybe different ways and at different levels, but we're all in this together and we're all brothers and sisters at some level. And that resonates with most of them. And I also tell them they're part of this process of me building the best program for the most people. I don't know how much they take it, but I do have this one hack. For my top students from last year, I reached out to them, and I the ones that I found to be the most mature of my students and really the smartest and best. I asked them if they want to be my TAs.
Oh wow!
For the following year, and so I have 7 this year already, and so they're helping me build. I'll show them a prompt and I'll say, "Can you build me 15 questions around this prompt that talks about slope and talks about averages and it talks about increasing, decreasing, and everything." And they looked at me and they're like, "Sure," and I'm like, yeah, they want to help. They're awesome. They know what their part is, and I told them from this they get the most ass kicking college recommendation, right? That's
awesome. Yeah, every kid wants that in high school.
But they're not doing it for that right now. They're doing it because they're like they know what they're doing. Like I said, I show them my plan, and they're like, "Oh, I see how I fit into this. This could be really cool." So
that's so cool. What is a TA position? A normal sort of thing, or did you invent that at your school?
So in my high school, you can be a TA or you can do independent study. I don't know any other teacher who capitalizes on this TA-ship thing. I almost feel like the teachers should be recruiting these kids to be their TAs, right? Like after they finish their classes, they should be going over to the kid and saying, "Hey, I want you to be the my algebra 2 TA next year," like, or come be my TA. Like I tell them if they're my TA for honors physics, when they get to AP physics, like it's not even going to be a class for them. They're going to know all of everything already.
Where do you get that energy to like want to believe in people and root for people? I think Tyler Cowen says one of the greatest things you can do is like raise the ambitions of other people. And that's something I try to embrace in my journey as well.
I don't know. High school was one of the funnest times of my life. So I just like, for me, that's kind of where I draw a lot of my energy. It was an easy time, but so for me, some of the kids who are struggling, I know I have to like dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of that. So they it might be the 15th time I'm saying it, but it might be only the second time they've ever heard it. So just being careful with them. But in terms of like motivation, I love high school. I love being in the high school. It's exciting. The students are just, they're fun, funny.
What do people have wrong about the next generation? Like you just see so much negativity about like, oh, the next generation's not gonna thrive. But every time I meet somebody that's young, I am sort of blown away and impressed. People seem far beyond like where I was at similar ages.
Academically, absolutely. They're more advanced than I was. And I think I probably went to as good a high school as I'm teaching now. And the students have so much more opportunity and so many of them are jumping on it. but how I feel about it is, in terms of education, it's going to maybe take a few more years to get to the level of rigor, the average level of rigor that we had before the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been tough transition.
But the one thing I say is that these teenagers, they're so kind to each other.
Wow.
Like when they're with each other, I don't see any bullying. I don't see any I don't know. I don't think I have blinders on, but inside my classroom, yeah, they're just kind to each other, and they're kind to me for some reason, right? And I have kids who I give them F's over and over again, and I'm just like, please come to me for help, and they're still maybe getting F's, and they're still kind to me, and I'm like, I don't, and of course I'm kind back to them,
yeah.
But I think they're just happy to be there, and have another grown up that's not yelling. I'm not yelling at them, I just say, can I show you the order of operations? How, you have to do the exponents before you divide by 2, or that's
awesome. I'd love to shift back to Stockslam. When did that start taking hold? I know it was right before the pandemic when you felt like you finally got the formula for the game. But when did you start working on that more seriously, and where is that now?
So I think I mentioned the germ sort of of the idea started with King Yao making us watch a basketball game, and we were making a market in the total number of points. And what I was watching was, I was watching this game happen where we had no idea what the solution, what the end result was going to be. So it was sort of stochastic. But my idea was how is this repeatable? I can't have basketball teams keep doing this thing, right? I need to write a program. I need to figure out a way to show, again, now we're going to stick, a multi-way race. So a race amongst a bunch of people or players that is random, but the walk itself of each character is random, and the final winner is random, but it looks like a race. It basically looks like a race that you're watching, and so imagine going to the horse race, and a horse race, and the horse race itself takes 20 minutes. So as this horse race is going on, and different horses are pulling ahead and falling behind, you can trade your bets with other people in the crowd. If you offer them the right price for their tickets, they'll sell it to you. And then now you've changed which horse you're betting on, and then maybe you take that ticket that you just bought and you sell it at a profit, and you're managing a portfolio of all these bets on all these horses. So I knew that was going to be the game. Probably my final game, I knew that probably, I don't know, within a year of kicking around this idea of what King showed us, but I never could figure out how to number one, simulate that game, and number two, what the actual mechanics were of recording your trades with each other. So it took me 20 years to learn the computer programming in order to write the simulation, in order to write the board that we'd interact with, and then it took me another few years to realize how to work the mechanics of making the trades. And now it's complete.
Yeah, so it sounds like Stockslam now is in a good place. What's the next step with Stockslam?
So after talking to two old students of mine, Tina Lindstrom and Chris Abdelmessiah, Tina happened to reach out to me on Facebook just to say hi. And I said, "Oh, this is amazing. You're one of my students. Can I show you this thing I developed?" And she immediately reached out to Chris. And while she's talking to me, she's like, "What do you want to do with this?" And I said, "I have no idea. Like, no trader has seen this yet. I've shown it to people and I've play tested it and I've even made the Kickstarter video, but I didn't really have the big break that I was looking for. I mean, I had taken it to conferences and play tested it in front of people and gotten feedback but no, it's no publisher. A game publisher would have to be walking by when I was playing it or something to get, for me to. So I wasn't getting any leads. The plan was to continue to just play it with my students, maybe in a finance club or something. But when Tina saw it, she immediately understood what it was about. She understood what it would be good for. And Chris, the Messiah, pretty much saw the same thing. And in a 3-way conversation with them, the question was asked, "What do you want to do with this, Steiner?" And I said, "I'm open to suggestions." And Chris suggested that we get this out there to the people through his connections and Tina's connections. And that's what we're doing.
And it sounds like, I mean, I watched a video of people playing this game. It's just very exciting. It's very interactive. Are you really trying to inject the trading floor energy?
Oh yeah. And if you see those videos, those are middle schoolers who have just been briefed on the rules, and the grown-up who's jumping around them is me. I'm just having the best time and keeping order to the market so that they don't step on each other and they make their intentions clear. But for the most part, I'm trading with them. I'm encouraging them to trade with each other, and yeah, it simulates a pit trading. So
that's awesome. And what are your plans with this? I mean, I think you're hosting sort of a trial 3-day session in New York. Is this the end of September or beginning of October?
Beginning of October. Chris and Tina have sent out an invitation for people who are interested, and it's just going to be a few sessions with people who I'm just looking for some feedback and what they how they think I'm not sure what the next thing is going to be, but we're going to use that session to inform our next move. But I could see building a course around it to teach decision making and option theory and derivatives pricing. And I could also see that this would be like a dream come true almost, but you saw how crazy that was with 10 middle schoolers and me.
Yeah.
There's no limit to the number of people who can play this game at a given time.
Oh, wow.
So I could have a session with 200 people. And as long as we had a projector to project this one board, like where they have to see to make their pricing decisions, as long as I have a projector where everyone can see it, like a movie screen, I could have 200 people basically pit trading, and it's a zero-sum game. So someone would have the most money and someone would have the least money, and there would just be a ranking, and you would just know, not who's the best trader. It could be who got the luckiest, right?
Yeah.
But it would be a pit floor simulated like no other in the world, and that would be, and it would, like, being in the middle of that would be a dream come true.
That's amazing. I definitely want to play this at some point. What do you think are some of the lessons you're hoping people take from a game like this, even if they're not in a finance environment?
It always comes back to kind of finance. I think in general, understanding the value of something, that's what this game is about in some ways, because it's a market, and where buyers and sellers come together on a price is the market. a stock doesn't go up because there's more buyers than sellers, um, uh, because every time there's a print, there's a buyer and a seller on both sides. Um, a stock goes up because there's some kind of information out there that people are reacting to, and so that's what my game is about. It's about price discovery, and equilibrium. It's about gambling and knowing risk. So
Yeah. Do you think these sort of principles can help guide people's life decisions too? I mean, one thing I've been thinking about a lot is sort of like pricing my time. So there might be freelance opportunities I get, and they might have like a decent wage, but then there's a cost in terms of like my energy and to my soul. Like, so I think a lot about like, okay, I need to factor in all the costs and all the prices. And I think a big flaw people have is they sort of just look at like monetary price. Do you think some of these ideas are applicable in this sort of lens?
well, the game itself is just
Yeah,
straight
I
up
know
like
it's
who can make
for
the
sure.
most money with the least amount of risk. But for sure, even at throughout certain parts of the game, there's this like sort of expectancy. Like you can look at the branches of the tree and try to figure out what things are worth, and then like just figuring out the value of any decision under uncertainty. My game is doing that because I don't know the answer to any of the prices when I'm playing my game, and I designed it, and so the decisions I could write a spreadsheet to give me some ideas for some prices as I'm playing the game, but I'm not even sure I could figure it out. So when you're making a decision and all of the outcomes are clear, you can still make a decision, and then you're just looking for the feedback. In finance, it would be are you winning or are you losing? Is the bet moving against you
Yeah.
or for you? And then like in life, you make a decision and then you just keep evaluating, I think.
This is amazing.
So
Where can people find out more if they want to learn more about Stockslam or some of these stuff upcoming? I'll figure out some of the links to put in so I can attach some links if people want more information. And I know Chris has more of a social presence, so I can link up to him as well.
yeah, the playstockslam.com, all one word except for the .com, is the board that when you go there, you can play around and see like the random walk of a stock. So you can actually see the stock. So you can actually watch the race that you would be betting on the stock. So that's just a fun simulation. But for actually learning more about it. I mean, I have a Facebook page and I have some videos there of people playing it, but nothing. Yeah, I don't really have a big Twitter
Awesome.
presence
Stay
or
tuned.
any of that other stuff. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, I mean, I think I have Play Stock Slam on Twitter or something like that. But Chris and Tina are the ones who have just been spreading the word, and that has, yeah, that was so humbling. I said, you can get me you can put some asses in the seats for me to play this game with people, like some people in finance. And Tina said, hey, Steiner, all we have to do is tell them that you taught us and people will sign up for it. I was like, that's it. Well, right. It's like,
No,
that's all
that's
you have to
amazing.
say.
Yeah.
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 I
And
was so I hadn't talked to them for 25 years, and this is how they
that's
repay me.
Yeah, I mean, I sense you've had an impact on many people, and I really appreciate sharing your journey and the story today. I think it's definitely an inspiration for my path, and I just appreciate. It seems like you're still so energized about your life and work. So appreciate that.
Thanks, Paul.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to this episode of The Pathless Path. I love having these kind of conversations. And if you want to continue to support me doing this, the best thing you can do to support me is hit subscribe, leave a comment, or follow along in your favorite podcast app.